Welcome back, everybody, to the Even Your Dynasty show.
We just got breaking news in.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Even Your Dynasty show. We are back with a special guest today. Left-handed pitcher Charlie McDaniel from the Eugene Emeralds is here to join us today. So thanks again, Charlie, for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you guys for having me. Pretty excited.
Yeah. So welcome back, everybody. So we're going to just jump right in. Make sure if you guys have questions for Charlie, please do shoot them in the comments. We all have a bunch of our questions that we're going to ask him, and then we usually will try and pull some of those comments as you guys are kind of towards the tail end of the show. So we'll, grab some of those, flag some of them as they come in, and we'll send them Charlie's way. So I'll just kick it right off really quick. What kind of drew you into baseball? Was that the only sport you played as you grew up, or did you play a bunch of sports, and what kind of drew you towards focusing on that?
Yeah, so I kind of grew up playing a bunch of different sports, probably up until high school is when I started kind of solely playing baseball. But even when I was really little, 3 or 4 years old, I'd go out in the yard and just loved playing with my dad. He'd throw to me, or I'd hit off the tee, or whatever it was. And then, as I kept getting older, I just really loved playing baseball. I was left-handed, which was really nice as I started pitching. But throughout elementary school, middle school, I played basketball, football for a little bit. But then, as I said, once I kind of got to high school, I knew really kind of gravitated towards baseball. Stopped playing football probably about when other guys started hitting puberty and they started getting a little bigger, because I was kind of a late bloomer. So once guys kind of started getting bigger, I was a little bit more, I was like, you know what, maybe we stick with basketball and baseball for now. And then kind of once it got to around high school, I'm like, okay, I'm really kind of enjoying baseball and want to try to pursue it after high school and as far as I can go.
So to piggyback off of Cody's question, so would you say that your dad was probably one of your bigger influences in your career as you were coming up through baseball, or was there a specific coach or friend or somebody that was an influence on you?
Yeah, I mean, my dad's always been super supportive. He kind of introduced me to the game, and then coached me at a younger age. And I've got a younger brother who's 2 years younger than me, and we'd play together. And once I got to about 12 years old or so, 11 or 12, my dad he was kind of like, okay, I've taught you kind of everything I know about baseball. I've introduced you to it, but it's I kind of want to just want to be your dad and be supportive at this point. I don't really want to be your coach. So, and I actually am very appreciative of that, because through the highs and lows of playing this game, I could kind of just go to him, and he's a supporter. He may give me stuff he sees just here and there, but for the most part, he was never really coaching me or hard on me about doing this or that, but was just kind of just there and supported me. And anytime he was I'll throw with you, I'll catch for you, as long as I still can. At this point, he's getting throw a little bit harder now. It's harder to play catch, but yeah, I mean, he's just always been supportive. And then once I was about 12 years old, I had kind of a coach in middle school that was really helpful. His name's DJ Santiago, and he would I just kind of played for him in travel ball at the time, but he had played, I think he played in the minor leagues for a little bit, and then coached in college for a little bit, scouted for a little bit, but just one of those guys that's always been around the game. And when I was in middle school, he kind of started to introduce me towards how to do arm care, how to actually have a long toss throwing program, how to get better. And he would always structure the like in today's travel ball, like especially at the youth level, like it's like these big tournaments that are always on the weekends, and you're playing 5-6 games in a weekend, and you have a lot of families that are pushing towards like, we got to win this weekend, or we got to play in this tournament or this. But I really appreciated that he was very much so like, I'm going to try to schedule this out as a season and make it as similar to like college or professional baseball as I can, in the sense of like, we want to be playing our best baseball in July. And he would tell us that at 13 years old, and he would, we'd have practices where he's teaching us like the fundamentals of like developing and learning the mental game. So like he kind of instilled a lot of the basis of like how to almost like treat the game as a way of continuing to get better. And I was very appreciative of that. And then it kind of just transitioned into high school. I had a really, really good high school coaches, and very appreciative of them. But so really at each level, as it kind of went, my dad kind of introduced me, and then I'm really thankful for kind of my middle school coach. My high school coaches were awesome. And then my college coaches, which I'm super thankful for them. And kind of at each level, I'd kind of gained a little bit of a different perspective at each one. So really all of my coaches from college down to like even my dad they've had their own kind of piece and really helping me in my career.
Nice, man.
That's awesome. And going back to your high school career, I see your high school team in Florida won the state championship back in 2019. Do you feel like that really helped pave the way for you playing Division I baseball, or do you think it was at some point prior to that in high school?
No, I think that was kind of a turning point for me in a sense. So, I mean, that was a really fun year. We weren't like the year before, our high school wasn't known for being like, we were good at athletics. We were big high school. Like the Central Florida area, like Orlando area, has really good like high school baseball, high school athletics in general. Like, and we play a lot of good teams, but we weren't necessarily considered like a powerhouse of the area. And then we kind of had a pretty solid core group of guys that junior year, guys that I like, thankfully our coach kind of brought us together. Before that, we were a little bit like, some guys were talking about maybe going to a different school, or some guys were kind of like, man, I'm just not enjoying it. And, we kind of had a really good fall of like getting ready for the season, and it started to really click. And thankfully I had there's another pitcher that we had that year who's now with the Mets organization, and his name's Matt Allen. He had gotten drafted, I guess after that season, but, being able to play in playoff games and high level competition as a junior. And at the time I was throwing like upper 70s, like wasn't throwing hard, wasn't like highly recruited. Actually wasn't really recruited at all at that point. But, had to find ways to get outs in a competitive high school area. And, being able to have that success, but also learn from other guys that had success around me was, I think, really helpful. And then kind of that next year, what would have been my senior year, even though like COVID came around and we had the whole thing with COVID, like I still had kind of a good summer leading up to it. It's the summer going into my senior year, and the only offer I ended up getting was from the school I ended up going to, which was Presbyterian College. And again, I was low to mid 80s on my fastball and wasn't throwing very hard. But, throughout my whole like high school career, I'd kind of, because I didn't throw hard, but I still had coaches that knew I could get outs and kind of saw where I could go in the future. They were like, all right, you're going to have to, like, we're going to keep working on, getting you stronger, getting you throwing harder. Cause I was pretty skinny, pretty undersized at the time. And they're like, but at the same time, like while you're doing that, find ways to get outs. And I think that kind of helped me in a sense, because I kind of learned like, all right, how do I get outs? How do I have success, even though I may not be throwing the hardest right now? that's kind of been something that led me into college, and kind of kept working towards it, and ended up at Presbyterian College, and it kind of built from there.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, so obviously, if you look at like your numbers in college, you took a huge jump your senior year. Really improved a lot. What do you think kind of drove that? Was it just kind of learning how to get? You mentioned learning how to get outs. Was it like that, or did your stuff improve? Like gain velocity? Because I mean, now obviously you're up in the mid 90s a lot of times. What kind of helped?
It was kind of it's a little bit of a mix of both. So going to Presbyterian College, it's probably the smallest Division I school in the country, at least by population. So it's the only place I had an offer from out of high school, and I hadn't heard about it until their assistant coach had reached out to me. But I went on a visit, and all the aspects I was looking for in a school they had, and I was excited at the time just to be able to get an opportunity to play Division I baseball. And I felt like I could compete to play there. I wasn't going to be given anything, but I knew if I continued to get better, I'd be able to. So my freshman year, I came in and I had a really good fall. And, at the time I was still not throwing super hard, at least for college. But ended up starting as a freshman, which I was very thankful for, and got some of that experience where my stuff probably wasn't the best, at least at the time, but I pitched well enough to where we won some games, and kept the walks down, got a lot of weak contact, and was could move the ball around, and kind of had fastball changeup, and the curveball really wasn't there yet, but had a good freshman year. Went and made a regional, and I was able to pitch against Vanderbilt in like a regional, which as a freshman is terrifying, but also exciting because it's like you get that opportunity. Kind of got hit around a little bit, honestly, and but it was an amazing experience, and it was something that I looked at as a learning opportunity. But it kind of took me. I kind of continued to get stronger, but still wasn't having like the best years. Like sophomore year, like kind of struggled. Junior year, still kind of struggled, but like there were little bright spots where it's like, all right, I'm a little bit stronger, a little bit harder. Like the changeup's a little bit better in my junior year, but it's still like not really quite there. And then it kind of came around in my senior year, and I knew I wanted to play at the professional level. Like I hadn't really performed to that point, and I wouldn't talking to any teams or anything, but I kind of had a talk with one of my older coaches, DJ, who I talked about earlier. And he was like, look, like you got one shot at this thing, and I know you love it, and this is something you want to do. Like figure out what you need to do to get to the next level, and figure out also what you need to do to get the most out of this experience. So my senior year, like kind of had like one outing in an inter squad in the fall where our pitching coach we had some scouts in the stands because I went to college with another pitcher, Daniel Egan, who pitches in the Diamondbacks organization. He was with Hillsborough for most of the year this year, and he ended up getting drafted out of Presbyterian. But he had attracted some scouts to a game, and our pitching coach was like, look, he said to me before we had an inter squad, he said, look, like I know you're a command guy, but these guys want to see you. They want to see like your stuff. So he's like, for today only, I'm giving you like the full, like, he's like, I just want you to like throw everything as hard as you can. Just throw everything as hard as you can in the zone. So I kind of took that mentality and went out and ended up throwing really well. Like stuff kind of ticked up a bit, still had feel for the ball. Like I was basically putting the ball where I wanted to. And some kind of clicked right there where it kind of clicked where I was like, I can still, throw with effort and intensity and know where the ball's going and command the ball. And, the changeup was working well. Curveball was a lot harder and sharper. So the stuff kind of ticked up each year. Like I threw a little bit harder each year. Off speed got a little bit better each year. And then senior year, it just kind of clicked where I was like, I felt like I could be aggressive, I could make pitches, and I knew I wanted to play after that senior year, and thankfully we had a really good team and we played well and just kind of clicked for that senior season. So I would say it was a mix of like the stuff got a little bit better, but also there was kind of a mental click of being able to aggressively like compete and just execute one pitch at a time.
Nice. So to kind of pick up off of that point that you just made, and the questions that Cody and Ricky just asked, what would you say was probably like your toughest obstacle you had to overcome in your path to get to pro ball? And what'd you learn from that overall?
Yeah, I would say just probably just the fact that like not only did I not really throw super hard, but like I was always kind of like not like one of the biggest, strongest guy for most of my career. I got better about it as the year went on, or like as my career went on, but like it's kind of an overused term, but like I felt like I was kind of an underdog for a lot of my career and still feel that way a little bit now. But like it was kind of just mentally reminding myself that like I belong here and I can do this, and like I just have to be able to pitch my game. And the more I got back to like really the mental side of baseball, in the sense of like just getting better every day and trusting like the routines you have, trusting the work you put in. And then when it comes to game day, going out and competing and letting go of anything else in your mind and just competing and trying to execute each pitch. I felt like that's kind of been a big thing in my career, is being able to like just continue to work at it like every day and get better, get stronger, find ways to get better and to get outs.
Nice. Absolutely.
So kind of going off of that, my next question for you was, you're talking about more scouts seeing you with an uptick in velo during your senior year at Presbyterian. What kind of things were you hearing entering the MLB draft that year? I saw that you spent some time in the MLB draft league after that. Were you hearing that there was a handful of teams that were interested in you after that season, and they were just trying to see, like an extended look at you?
Yeah. So the jump in velo still wasn't a huge jump. My senior year, I was probably 89 to 91, really more so 88, 90. And I'd touch 91, 92 every once in a while. But I really started to get a good feel for the changeup and the curveball, where I could kind of put guys away in a way I didn't used to be able to. Like I could drop the curveball in for a strike early in the count, or I could throw in for 2 strikes and get a swing over the top. But that was, from a stuff side, that's kind of where I stood. And then thankfully it did help that we had Egan at school, so he kind of attracted some scouts in the fall. We also had another hitter who went to the Phillies. His name was Joel Dragoo. So like I'm pretty blessed in the sense that like I felt like I had the right people there at the right time. Towards the end of the fall, I kind of started hearing from 1 or 2 teams, and it really wasn't much. And then as the spring went on, I'd hear from another team, and then maybe another team. And by the end of the season, I had heard from like a handful of teams where I had a pretty good feeling I'd be able to get some kind of opportunity. But most of the teams were kind of saying, like, I know before my spring season, they had kind of said, if you can keep your velo kind of around 90 or above 90, like you'll be in a good spot. I had other guys tell me, like, if you can just show you can get outs and you can mix your stuff well and execute, like you'll have a good opportunity. But going into the draft as like a true senior, I didn't really have a ton of information on what that would look like. I didn't have an agent at the time. I didn't, most of the talks I had with any kind of scouts were with area scouts, and they were usually talking to me directly or talking to our pitching coach from college. And most of them said, you could go anywhere from like a middle round draft, or like a middle round, like somewhere around the 10th round, if a team's looking to get like a senior save sign. So like sometimes teams will take a senior player for like low money. You could go anytime day 3, or you could just sign as a free agent, which is, what I ended up doing. And extremely. I really, going into it, I just wanted to play. Like, I knew as a true senior with no more eligibility, there wasn't really much negotiating power when it comes to like a signing bonus. But at that point, my biggest thing is I wanted to play at the next level and keep getting better and keep playing this game and play at the highest level I could.
Nice. What was that process like choosing the Giants? Did you have like a few different teams you were talking to, or?
Yeah, it was kind of a whirlwind, honestly. So, it came around to day 3 of the draft, and I kind of followed along for most of the day. And as it got kind of later in the draft, it's a pretty stressful day because you want to see your name called. And then I think as it got to around round 16 or 17, I told my mom, I'm like, I got to get out of the house. Like, I got to go do something. So I went over to the gym. Like, I went and tried to lift. Didn't get much out of the lift, but I just needed to get away. And the 18th round came around, and that's when I got a call from the Giants area scout, and he had said, "Look, we've kind of got our next 2 picks already set up, but we want to offer you a free agent deal." And I said, "Yeah, I mean, if nothing else comes up between now and then, like, I'm in." So I go home, call my parents. I'm like, "All right, I'm going to play pro ball. Like, I've got something." So I came home, draft finished. And then right when the draft ended, I got like a text from another team. I got a text from like 2 more teams, and they're kind of talking like, we could get you this amount of money. We can get you this amount of money. And I'm between, like, I'm calling these different scouts at the time. I'm like, hang on, I'll get back to you. Where there was probably a 5-10 minute span of time where I was basically playing agent for myself. And so the Giants area scout texted me back, and he's like, "Hey, are we still good?" And I texted him. I said, "Do you need to know right now? Because I know there's times where some teams will, offer something, and if you're a senior and they're not offering it for much, if you don't respond right away, they're just going to go to someone else." So I texted him that, and he didn't respond right away. So I was like, okay, I got to call this guy. So I called him, and he was like, I was like, "Hey, do you need an answer right now?" He's like, no, dude. Like, you take your time. Like, the offer's on the table. Like, I just want you to be a Giant. I think you can get better here. And I think you're going to get better here. And I want to see you in our organization because I think you'll fit in really well. And really kind of when he said that, like, I was still waiting on like 1 or 2 other teams. And that's kind of what I was looking for. So I told him, I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm good to go.
Nice.
So that's kind of how that whole process was. It was a pretty stressful whirlwind, like, day, and honestly 15 minutes. But once it all kind of settled, I was ecstatic, and I was super pumped. And I'm glad, and I'm super blessed and thankful that I'm here now.
And we're happy to have you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How was the celebration like after that with the family and everything?
It was good. Not too many I think most of my friends weren't like in town, but thankfully one of my best friends who, like, at the time had moved to Tampa and still kind of lives down there, but his parents were in town and just happened to be in town. So, and I'd been really close with them all throughout high school, and they kind of knew what was going on. They knew, like, all right, we're kind of following along with the draft, and like I just started texting and calling all my friends and telling, like, hey, like, I'm going to be a Giant. And they're, everybody's super pumped. And it was pretty, once I kind of came down from the process of figuring it out, like, it was the best feeling. So, like, I went to dinner with my parents, went and met up with one of my best friend's parents. And it was just fun seeing them and thinking about, like, it just made me think about all the people in my career who I've gotten really close with and who have helped me. So
nice.
Now, just going back to the draft league real quick, I saw you're actually teammates in that league with Hunter Dryden. That's correct, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What was that like? Did you guys already have kind of a little relationship being pitchers over on that team before you guys both ended up with the Giants?
Yeah. So he had gotten up, I think he had joined the team probably a week or probably 2 weeks after I was up there. And I had gotten to know him. I wasn't like, we weren't super close, but like, you know, you're on the staff and like you're around each other. And the way the roommate situation worked, we were kind of far away from each other. So outside the field, we didn't see each other much, but it was really awesome because I had seen he had gotten drafted earlier in the day. And I ended up just straight up calling him after the draft. I'm like, hey, you're going to the Giants, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, me too. He's like, no way. So that was pretty cool. And honestly, like he's probably become one of my best friends in the organization just over this last, I guess, year and a half at this point, or year and a couple months. But like he's the man. Like we weren't like super close at the time in the draft league, but once we both got out to Arizona and got going, like we became like super close, and that was a pretty cool experience too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you guys were part of it.
He was also nasty in the draft league. Like I remember his first outing, he got there, and someone asked him, they're like, what do you normally around? Like, what's your stuff normally look like? He was like, like I'll normally be around like 93 to 96 or so. And like in my head, I'm like, all right, most guys like bump their velo like 1 or 2 miles an hour. Like he's probably like 1 to 4. Comes out his first outing, he's 94, 96. I'm like, oh, and I think might have touched the 7. And I'm like, oh yeah, no. he was honest. And it makes perfect sense now because like humble, or like Hunter's like the most humble, like down to earth dude. So
yeah,
he actually talked himself down from what he normally really is.
Yeah, I don't, because I know you probably followed their playoff series a little bit because obviously you were teammates with a lot of those guys early in the year.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember which round it was, but I know Hunter had an outing where he went like 4 innings with 10 Ks in the.
Yeah, I think that was in Fresno.
Games. Yeah,
he came in relief in Fresno, and I like called him right after. I'm like, dude, I was like, what was working? He's like, dude, everything was working. It was awesome.
It was nasty. So, and you know, that kind of leads me to my next question, because you guys, you actually got started off as a reliever this season, and then they pulled you out of the pen. You made I think like 5 starts in San Jose before they moved you up to Eugene, and then they had you start up there. What was kind of the difference, I guess, both in preparation for you? Are you kind of comfortable either way? You just want to pitch, or do you have like a preference there?
Yeah. So I had they kind of told us before the season started, like there's a handful of us who they had built us up as starters, and they had told me like, we still want you to be a starter. And then when it came to San Jose, they were like, we have more than 6 starters on the team. So he's like, so there's going to be a couple days where some of you guys you're still considered starters, but you'll do what's called like piggybacking. We'll have you guys piggyback after a couple of the other starters. And I think there's at one point where like we had like 2 or 3 guys in the week who were still technically considered starters who were just throwing after another one of the starters. So they told me early on after, once we got to San Jose, they were like, all right, we're going to have you throw after, Nico Mazza. And, he'll go 4 to 5 innings, especially early on in the season. And then hopefully you can come in and, you go for as long as you can, or at least try to finish it out if you can. And it kind of became that way, that routine where, if the stuff was working, hopefully I was still going 4 to 5 innings, and in a sense, still getting kind of somewhat of a shorter start, but I was just doing it out of the bullpen. And there definitely was, a little bit of a like learning curve with figuring out, what do I need to do in my routine to come out of the bullpen? Because, as a starter, you have that whole allotted time to get ready for the game, versus when you're in the pen, you got to be ready when they call down. So I just kind of figured out a way to like shorten my routine and figure out what I needed to do. But I enjoyed that part of it, and I also enjoyed when they told me I was going to be a starter. Like, it was super fun throwing after Mazza, and especially since we were throwing well, but I was super pumped when they told me I was going to be be starting again once Ferrone moved up, and once they moved me back into starting, I just wanted to take it and run with it. So
Nice.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of, pick up on that question. How was just the overall grind of, the minor league life? Like in your first, full season of pro ball, how was that in general? Like the travel, the uncertainty, the highs, the lows, how was that whole process? How did it test you? And overall, what just kind of kept you motivated through that season?
Yeah. So the travel, like, there's definitely more travel, but with it being like a full, you stay in one place for the 6 days and then you're at home for the next 6 days, like you do get a bit of a routine where it makes it a little bit easier. And I was at least a little bit used to like having to travel just from college. Like it makes it, because we didn't fly anywhere in college. We'd have some pretty long or difficult bus rides. So, you were used to it going into pro ball. But the difference was, like, in college, it felt like you had 3 months of like a very intense season versus like when it came to pro ball, like it's so much more expanded where you kind of, there's a little bit more of like a long-term approach to it. So it's like you're still getting ready for every 6th day, every 7th day, every 5th day, whatever it is. But you're doing it in a extent for 4 months longer. So I would say between just the like mental side of it being like a longer season, not necessarily like, I didn't feel like it was too much more physically taxing. Now, I threw a similar amount of innings as I did to my senior year of college, and hopefully in the future I throw more. So I may have a different answer next year or the year after that, to be honest. But what made it a lot easier too is I was very thankful of the 2 teams that I was on this last year. I had a lot of good dudes, cool guys to be around that like made it a lot more enjoyable. Both squads had a lot of like really good clubhouse dudes, and like it made the whole experience enjoyable. And then from a stance of like, staying motivated throughout a whole season, I think like if you try to look at the whole season as a whole, or saying like, man, I have to, not have to, I get to throw for this whole season. That's one of them, is kind of being thankful for the opportunity. Like, I'm getting to play baseball as my job every day. I get to show up to the field every day. So like kind of having that like mindset where you're thankful for that opportunity helps. And then B, looking at it as like day by day. So like getting your routines and having really consistent routines of what you do between starts, like it helps you to kind of focus like moment by moment, day by day. It kind of breaks it up where it's a lot more manageable, and then, in my opinion, a lot more enjoyable.
Nice. Yeah, for sure.
What would you say you felt like the biggest difference was between being in San Jose and going up to Eugene?
I felt like the hitter's approach was a little bit more. More guys, I think, really knew what they were trying to do when they went up to the plate in Eugene. At least from a sense of like the competition level wise. Is that kind of what you're more hinting at? Is the competition, or is it just in general?
More the competition.
Okay. Yeah. I noticed like, there was a little bit more pop. You still had guys in Loa that had a ton of juice, but I felt like there was in Eugene, there was just a couple more guys that had a little more juice, and it was also like they kind of knew what they were doing when they got up to the plate. You'd have a handful of guys you face in low A where you could tell they didn't really have an approach. So like from the first pitch, you could see kind of what they were doing, or you could like they were either just kind of a heavy swinger, or they were like a little bit more of a mature hitter. And then I think when I got to high, I kind of started mixing in more, like really looking at approaches in the sense of like balancing, like, all right, how much am I playing to my strengths? And then how much am I trying to kind of see where the hitter's weaknesses are? And that was something I felt like I started learning more in Eugene, because in San Jose, we'd have a meeting with the pitching coach and the catcher, and we'd talk about it before the game. But I didn't do too much like scouting beforehand versus when I kind of got to Eugene after a few weeks. I had talked to a couple guys. They're like, yeah, I mean, a day or two before the game, I'll go in and look at, where each hitter's like weaknesses, where their hot spots, what pitches do they slug well, what pitches do they struggle with, and what locations. And I think when I got to Eugene, I started kind of looking at that a little bit more, and I realized like hitters had a little bit more of an approach. A 2-strike pitch you may throw in San Jose that a guy with that they may take if it's out of the zone or too far out of the zone in Eugene. But I felt like your executed pitches still play. It's like your mis-executed pitches in the zone get handled a little bit better. And then the ones that are too far out of the zone where it may not be as enticing, they're not going to swing as much.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring up a start. Obviously, we talked a little bit about it in the green room. For anybody listening that doesn't follow too closely, Charlie, I think, had the honor this season of carrying a no-hitter the farthest of any Giant of any level this year. He carried one into the 8th inning in a start in Eugene. I think it was your last regular season start.
It was the last regular season game of the year.
Yes. Oh, it was the last game even. Okay, so last regular season game of the year. He carried a no-hitter into the 8th inning. And the team, to the credit, I actually loved seeing this from a development side, them letting you keep going out there and pursuing that. But what was that whole experience like for you?
So I kind of went into the game with my normal routine. I was kind of looking at approaches and what I wanted to do. And but even like, I was going in like, all right, I'm going to look at like, these are kind of where they struggle. Like, these are kind of my strengths. We're going to see where we can match them up. And the pitching coach was even like, they kind of said like, hey, this is the last game of the regular season. Their hitters, they're not playing the playoffs. Like, you may see a lot of them are a little bit more aggressive. They're going to try to hit the ball out of the yard and see what they can do for the last game. So I was like, you know what? Okay, that could go to my advantage. But I didn't really think much of it for the rest of the game. Well, game kind of started going, and as I kind of got through the first inning, the second inning, third inning, it's probably around the third inning, I was like, all right, stuff feels pretty good today. Like, I feel like I'm getting some good whiffs on the off speed. Like, fastball feels like it's playing pretty well. And I didn't really think much of it. And then kind of when it came around to about the 4th or 5th inning is when I kind of realized what was actually going on. And I didn't really want to talk to anybody, but I still try to keep the same mindset of like, staying focused. I'm going to execute my pitches how I'm going to, or how I want to, like, and try to execute one pitch at a time. And like, still at the time, like, once you kind of get in that competitive mindset, like, I wasn't really thinking about it. You just wanted to win. Like, you wanted to go execute, get off the field, or get off the field as quick as you can so your hitters can hit. So try to get some quick outs. And you're still trying to win the game, and you're trying to finish the season on a high note. So
nice.
Yeah, you're a deal in that game. To somebody in the chat asked this, but it was my next question. So it's kind of like a 2-part question, but they kind of go one and the same. But you touched on it earlier in your response just now. Do you have like a particular routine on game day for you whenever you're pitching? Like, are you superstitious in a way? Like, you have to have like a pregame ritual that, kind of like you swear by?
I'm not too like superstitious, but I am very much so. Like, I like having my consistent routine. So, I honestly, like, when it comes to game day, like, I don't have much of an appetite. And you can also ask any of my teammates. Like, this is something I've done since college, and it's not something I try to do, but I usually throw up before like every game I start. And I don't know why it happens. Like, it's not like what made me feel better is I heard Josh Allen does it before football games. So I'm like, okay, it's normal. But I talk to people about it, and they're like, all right, well, like if you don't feel like it affects your performance or your health or anything, like I think it's okay. So, it's just kind of something that happens. Like the way I explain it is like, like most people get butterflies before the game, like mine just come out in a sense. So like honestly, that's the closest thing I have to a superstition. But like if I did throw up before a game, I would actually probably be happy about it. So it's not like I would be worried.
Yeah.
So is that every game?
That I can remember? I think there was maybe one this season that I didn't.
Interesting.
Did you throw well that game, or did it just go sideways and you're like, nope? Or
You know what? It was two. Like one, I threw well, so I'm like, all right, it's good to know. Like if I don't throw up, I'm okay. And then the next one, I didn't throw up, and I didn't throw too well. So I'm like, you know what?
Need to throw up.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to. But
Now, what was that process like when you came in relief? Were you like, all right, I got to go warm up real quick, but let me go throw up first and then go out to the pen and warm up?
It's like, what's weird is it's at a different point throughout the day most of the time. Like there's no set time that it happens. It could happen as late as like while I'm on the bullpen mound, and it could happen as early as like when I wake up in the morning. And so like, I just, when it comes to game day, like I kind of wake up like already like, I don't even want to call it anxious, but like excited. Like I kind of just get jitters because it's like I know I'm going to compete that day.
As long as it's not on the mound.
No, yeah, thankfully.
Hey, John Boy broke down at least like 2 or 3 pitchers this year that did that. So
Yeah, hopefully I don't have one of those. So
yeah, you'll end up as a John Boy breakdown if you do it in the majors one day. Yeah, that's funny. What did you feel like you learned the most this season, just overall?
A lot of it was just kind of, we've been talking about routines. So like what routines I need to do, not only to like stay healthy throughout the full season, but to hopefully, improve as the season goes on. Make sure my stuff's in the right spot. Like, so kind of going back to my routines, like game day, it's actually a little bit more like kind of simple where it's like, I'll keep my routines in a sense where it's, if there's access to like hot tubs, like I'll tub, or I always shower before the game, but it'll come down to kind of my warm up routine. So, and I try to keep that pretty consistent for almost every day. So we have like a mobility prep that we'll go through, and everybody has it, where it's just kind of some stretches and some movement, different exercises that you do before we go through like a team stretch that are specific areas you need to work on. So it's kind of, I would say like between a mix of figuring out what you need to do to make sure your body's ready to go every 5th or 6th day and doing that throughout the whole season. And then the other main thing I felt like I learned was kind of how my arsenal plays and how I want to use it against guys. And then being able to like balance the idea of matching my strengths with the hitter's weaknesses and figuring out like, all right, to what extent am I going to pitch to a hitter's weakness, and to what extent am I going to go to what my strengths are? So, and I think I learned myself, like, how I can mix. So it's like, if there's a guy that they may not swing it off speed early in the count, especially like breaking balls, I may drop a curveball in for a strike early in the count to try to get ahead. Or if I feel like they're aggressive and they're cheating to a fastball, I may go to a changeup first pitch and get them to try to swing thinking it's a fastball. So a lot of the learning for me, I felt like came from, finding consistent routines that work for me, but then also finding out, how do you game plan against a lineup? How do you change that game plan when you notice something's not working in the middle of the game, and, you may have to go to something else. And a lot of it came down to just learning myself as a pitcher and my routines and my arsenal and how it plays, and, trying to match it up the best I can.
So to follow up on on that point there, whether it was in college or whether it was this past season, is there like one drill in particular that you've kind of picked up on that's helped elevate your game that you've kind of implemented into your routine?
I don't know about like one specific drill. I take a lot of, or I try to take a decent amount of pride in my midweek bullpens. So like when it comes to my midweek bullpens, like I'll try to spend, unless there's something I need to work on, like unless there's one pitch I want to work on, a lot of my pens, I'll spend majority of them where I'm almost like shadow pitching, where it's in a sense of like, I'm going through batters, I'm going through counts where I'm trying to play pitches off each other. So I may talk to the catcher and the pitching coach and say, all right, let's say we've got a righty in the box, or even like if I know the lineup of the next, like if I remember some names from the next starts lineup, I may be like, hey, we've got this guy in the box. Let's do like a simulated at bat against him and try to execute each pitch. So I may go like fastball away to start off and then change up off of that. Or I may go breaking ball first pitch and then, back that up with another breaking ball, or whatever the sequence is. I try to be very intentional about not only like sequencing pitches off of each other, but being very specific with the execution of them. So like if it's 2 strikes and I throw one where the catcher's catching it and it's a strike, but it's too much in zone, I may look at the pitching coach and say like, hey, you think that should be like, you think I could go a little bit lower with that? He'd be like, yeah. Or he may be like he may bite at that, but like I think, or I may talk to the catcher. I'm like, did that start in zone and then end out of zone? Or could you see it out of hand, like down? And they'll give me that feedback. So like I really tried to consistently, at least in my bullpens, focus on pitch execution.
Solid.
Now, not to put you on the spot or anything, but do you have a favorite teammate from both San Jose and Eugene? You can choose 2 different guys, or maybe one that followed you from San Jose to Eugene.
Ooh, that's a tough question, because like kind of like I said earlier, like there really is like a lot of dudes on both teams that I got pretty close with. From San Jose, it's kind of a toss up between Hunter Dryden or Nico Mazza. Like us 3, and then honestly Tyler Sotolsky also. Like kind of us 4 would spend a ton of time together. And then when it comes to like Eugene, probably Tyler Sotolsky or Ben Peterson. And then honestly, from like a hitter side, I got pretty close to Xander Darby. So I know that's like 5 guys I just named, but like it really was like there's like another 5 to 10 dudes I could list off.
Yeah, Luis is saying you missed him.
Yeah, he said me.
De La Torre.
I only got to play with him for like 2 or 3 weeks, but like, oh wait, he just commented that?
Yeah,
on Instagram.
Yeah. Like I said, Dela, like I said, there's like a ton of other guys that would list off too.
Who asked Luis last week? It was a catcher. Was it
Juan Perez?
Yeah.
He was like, "Who's your favorite catcher and why is it me?" or something like that.
So, in all fairness, when we asked Luis that last week, he did the same thing. He named off like 10 different guys, and Juan Perez was on the Instagram chat like, "Dude, what about me?" Like just sitting there watching. So I told Luis, I was like, "By the way, your buddy's watching. And you didn't name him off."
I'm shocked Wani hasn't said something already. Got on and commented, because
That's
awesome. I feel like that's a huge strength of, I feel like so far at least those 2 teams is like, and it's made my experience like way better. It's just like I've felt like I've connected with a lot of the guys, and that was kind of a shock to me coming into pro ball, because you hear about how professional baseball tends to be a little bit more individual than college, just because there's so many moving parts. But like it was pretty cool to see that you still kind of got close with a handful of dudes.
Nice.
And one follow up real quick. Who's your favorite video guy in the organization?
Oh, no, that's got to be a comment, right?
Yes.
It's got to be Kaplan. Like, Andrew's super cool, but I spent most of the year with Kaplan, so I'm going Jordan Kaplan. And I know it's him who commented it too.
Sure is.
That's awesome. All right. Is there anything this offseason that you're wanting to improve on? Like you kind of digested what happened last season or during your first full season. What is it that you're wanting to improve on going into your next season?
Yeah. So thankfully, we have our end of the season kind of like meetings that we'll have with some of the coordinators and everybody, and we kind of talked about that at the end, and I was on board with the kind of what they said they wanted me to work on, and I felt like it lined up with the things I kind of was thinking I already wanted to work on. So, the main side is like gaining a little bit of strength and getting a little bit bigger. Like I'm strong, but like, I feel like there's always room to improve on that side from a physical standpoint. But it's also, hopefully I can add a couple miles an hour to the fastball through doing so. Mm-hmm. But I'm looking to hopefully try to add a slider possibly. I think that'll really help with, as they said, like kind of bridging the fastball and the curveball, especially to lefties. So I think that can potentially be a benefit. Like I look at, Ferrone kind of has both that curveball and that slider, and it's worked well for him. And I've already kind of picked a couple of the guys' brains on how they like throwing theirs, and between those and then just mentally preparing from it, whether that's just I do some of the I like doing a lot of the kind of mental side of baseball. Is sometimes I'll do some like visualization where it's like, you're seeing yourself in the outing. This is more so, I guess, between outings, but like, I'll spend some time this off season just looking at like, how do I want to execute? Like, how do I want to, like I've been talking about this whole time, like play pitches off of each other. And then, hopefully as we start working on the slider, seeing how that's going to play with every other pitch in the arsenal.
Yeah. I'm going to pull this comment up because somebody asked kind of a similar question to this, kind of what you were talking about. Is there a pitch one of your teammates has you wish you could add to your pitch mix? I know a lot of people got a lot of attention for Giants fans, especially because like Robbie Ray went to Tariq Skubal asking him on his changeup this year. Is there any teammates, like I know you guys kind of work with each other on maybe grips or anything? Is there anybody that
So I'll kind of like I'll kind of throw that in two categories. So I'll start with like guys I've like talked about different pitches with, and then I'll also put one that's just like, if I could just pick up someone's pitch and just add it to my arsenal, like I'll throw that in there. So I've talked to Ben Peterson a little bit about like our curveballs, and he had asked me about kind of some stuff I did with mine. And then I threw some questions about like some questions off of him of how he threw his. And then I also, when it came down to, I talked a lot about kind of changeups with Tyler Switolski, because he's kind of always had a pretty good changeup. And so we kind of talked about a little bit grips, but like more so just like, what's our thought at release? Like, are we someone that likes to get on the inside of the ball? Are we more like behind the ball? Are you thinking about getting out front, or are you changing your eyesight? So we talked a decent amount about those pitches. And then those are just conversations you have throughout the whole season in the dugout. So I would say I talked about the changeup with Switolski, the curveball with Ben Peterson, and those were more just us like kind of tinkering with what we like and kind of throwing ideas off of each other. But Darian Smith kind of was the one that a little bit influenced me in a sense of like, dude, you should try throwing a slider. And he kind of showed me a little bit of what he's trying to do with it. And I tinkered with some in catch play at the end of the season. He's like, dude, that one was pretty good right there. So, and then, it came around to the exit meetings, and they're like, hey, we want to see if you can add a slider. So great. that lines up perfectly.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that part of it. And then kind of to the aspect of like, if I could just grab someone's pitch and add it to my arsenal, I'd probably take either take Dryden's fastball or Jacob Bresnahan's fastball. Because like both of those dudes just get a ton of ride on their fastball, and they're like mid touching upper 90s.
Yeah, for sure.
So if I didn't have to do any work and I could just grab someone's pitch, it'd be one of those two's fastballs. But we're working on it. We're working to get there.
Especially as a strike thrower like you. If you're just
exactly
hitting 97 with ease, just
that's where it gets really fun.
Yeah. I know. I only have one more. I think they said they only have we have like a couple of questions that people asked as well. But have you, because I know you were in San Jose, so you were in the area already. Were you able to get to Oracle Park at all? Have you been out?
I was
there
not
yet?
this year. I got to the Golden Gate Bridge, but I actually went to a game when I was in high school. So that would have been when I was like 16. So I think it was still called like AT&T Park at the time. But like super cool. Like I remember like I went with my family. We were just kind of out I had a family wedding out there, like I think up in Oregon. So we made a family trip out of it. We went to San Francisco for a couple of days, and like
nice.
I remember going to a Giants game. I'm like, this is awesome. Like this is like one of the coolest parks I've been to. So like it is I hopefully I'll get the opportunity where I can pitch there. But like everything I've seen from on TV and from hearing from other guys, and then just even from like even when I went back like probably like 6 years ago, like it seems pretty awesome. So
nice.
Yeah, you'll love it when you're there here in a couple of years.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, I've only got one more. I think Ricky's got one more. Then there's just a couple comments, so we'll be wrapping up here shortly. But I wanted to know, besides baseball and outside of baseball, what is a hobby that you're passionate about?
So a lot of us, and I'm kind of gotten into it. I've been inconsistent and still working on it, but like golf. Like a lot of us have played golf, and it's usually what we'll do on our off day. And like the way I explain it is like I'm not great at golf, but I'm good enough. I can get myself around a course, and we're kind of working on it right now. So I like golfing. During the season, we got really into like some video games where I'm not a huge video game guy, but some of the guys in San Jose got me playing a little bit more consistently. So
when you said golf, I just saw Cody's ears perk up.
Yeah.
I used to work as a golf pro at one point.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Was it out west?
Yeah, just a couple private clubs in the Bay Area before I end up moving up to Washington. But I don't do that anymore, but I still enjoy playing.
Yeah. Well, when we were in San Jose, we went down to I think it was called Bayonet and Black Horse.
Yes.
Yeah. That is a cool course because it's like right on the water, and it was affordable for like what it was. So we even though it was probably 45 minutes from where we were, maybe even like close to an hour, off days where we weren't traveling, a handful of us would drive down there and play, and it was pretty fun.
Yeah, that's a great one in the Monterey area because especially everything else out there is insane.
Well, all the other courses right around there are super expensive, so that one was nice because you got a quality course at not a horrible cost.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice. Well, my last question for you was, so Dan and I were down in San Jose, I think before you got the promotion up to Eugene, and we talked to a handful of your teammates about who the funniest guy on the team was, and it was split between you and one other guy. Would you agree with that?
Well, now I'm curious. I'm trying to guess who the other guy was. I feel like it might be Hipwell.
He was one of the ones that we asked the question to, so he probably didn't want to say himself, but
that's fair.
Jeremiah was the other guy they threw out, but I think Jeremiah was the first one that name dropped you, actually. So would you agree with that?
Jeremiah still has an
appreciate it. Yeah,
all-time line on this show too.
I can
Love
only
to
imagine.
share.
Dude,
Yeah, I mean,
Jeremiah had us crying, bro.
He may have described somebody's physique as an upside down nacho or Dorito or
Upside down triangle.
Dorito.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he said it was like an
dude.
upside down Dorito.
He's throwing guys under the bus on here. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Well,
I saw in the intro video, like one of the videos is him dying laughing. So
That's what all of us
That was
Yeah.
literally that part of the show.
it was about Quinn McDaniel because they played college ball together, so they knew each other prior. So he's just talking smack about him, just joking around. So that's where that came from.
Quinn is kind of a beast, and it does. I mean, the high socks don't help either. But like, I don't know about upside down Dorito. That's crazy.
I'm sorry, I've said that a few times. I got thrown under the bus because I thought Quinn was like 5'8", and they're like, he's like 5'11", and I'm like, it's got to be the high socks. It makes him look shorter than he is.
Yeah, it might be. He's really not. He's kind of a built dude. He's all right.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I guess from a joking side, like I'll try to throw out a decent amount of jokes, especially like even with with Jordan Kaplan, who our video guy that commented earlier. We've got a decent amount of jokes in the dugout, and obviously when I'm pitching, I don't really joke around as much, but it was pretty easy to do on the other days in San Jose, especially with that group of guys in the dugout, and honestly in Eugene too. Like you get a lot of good characters in baseball. Mazza, if you guys have Nico Mazza on, he's a sneaky funny one because he's not going to be as vocal in a bigger crowd, but like he'll throw a little jab out that's just like everyone starts dying laughing at.
Yeah, definitely.
It's funny you mentioned Kaplan again. He's on the IG comments and he asked, "Hey Charlie, who's the biggest aura farmer in the org?"
Dude, it's him. He's got the most aura in the org for sure. Or at least he thinks he does, but he's got a decent amount. So
that's awesome. All right, well, we'll throw like two more questions in here. Mark wants to know what your walkout song is.
This year it's called 1901 by Phoenix, and it's like you probably wouldn't know it by the name, but if you heard it, you'd probably recognize it. A funny story about that is like, so I'm type 1 diabetic. That's like another just aspect of my life. And when I was a freshman in college, freshmen didn't get to pick their walk-up songs. So the seniors would pick it for them, and they made mine Pour Some Sugar on Me, like kind of as an inside joke. Now, one of the seniors was cool enough that were like, "Hey, like, we got this idea for your walkout. We got to run it by you, though, before we like throw it out there. We don't want to like do anything too rough." I'm like, "No," I'm like, "Let it eat. Like, that's good. I like it."
That's awesome. So, I appreciate that you have a sense of humor about that. That's great.
I do. I like to joke about it. I'll be honest about it. I mean, you look at Mason Miller and Jordan Hicks, and there's a couple there's a handful of guys that are open about their having type 1, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is. Let's see. I think this was a good one as well. Bake That Dough says, question for Forever Giant Charlie McDaniel: how much has analytics played a role in your development, like spin rate, etc.?
It's played like it's definitely a tool. Like I try to look at like when it comes to data or velo or like any kind of aspect that you talk about in the game, it's a tool. It's not the whole picture, but it's an important part of the picture. And so for me, like it's been nice to, from a sense of looking at the data when it comes to like the movement, it's kind of just making sure your pitches are doing what you want them to, and the numbers kind of can clarify or confirm what the eye is seeing. So if you notice like your curveball may have some good depth on it one day. You're like, man, I feel like it's working. Or maybe another day you're like, I feel like it's not really biting as much. Like you can kind of look back at the data and see that. And for me personally, like I would look at it with more so my fastball and my changeup. So like if I noticed, fastballs that I felt like were executed to a good spot, but they may get hit a little bit harder. There may be times where I may look back and be like, all right, well, like, was I getting behind the ball? Like, was I getting like some true backspin on it? Or was I kind of getting on the side where it was flattening out? And, the data can kind of confirm that and say like, all right, it may have been flattening out. Or it's like, all right, no, like you had some good true carry that day. And then when it came down to the changeup, I would look at kind of the like vertical break on the changeup to make sure like, okay, is it low enough where I'm still going to get like the result I want out of it, where it's differentiating from the fastball. So, that's where it's nice to have the data and to use it, because you don't necessarily go to it every time you're struggling with something. I'm going to go more towards like, did I execute pitches how I wanted to? Like, was I throwing the ball where I wanted to? Was I throwing the right pitch in the right time? And did I feel like I was executing like and competing with like full conviction? And then if those check the boxes, yes, then I can go back and say, okay, let's look at the data. Let's see how the pitches were moving. And I think some of the staff in both Eugene and San Jose was helpful with like kind of implementing that in the right way.
Nice. All right. Well, I think that's all we've got today for you. Is there anything you want to talk about, touch on before we wrap it up for you?
Not that I can think of. I thank you guys for the opportunity. I was really excited about it and appreciate it. And just like I'm looking forward to next year. I'm trying to get after it this offseason to come back even better. And I'm really thankful for all the other guys, if they're any of the other players or staff or anybody that's watching this stream right now, like, and the fans, honestly, too. It's like, I'm thankful for all y'all and your impact on my career. And I'm looking forward to next year, hopefully, getting better and getting back at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm looking forward to if you do start back up in Eugene again next year. I'm going to try and shoot down there, catch a game. Any of our East Coast fans, hopefully they can catch you in Richmond or one of those Northeast leagues or Eastern League venues next year. Maybe see you over there, and hopefully we'll see you in San Francisco soon, though. But thanks for joining us.
Yep. I thank you guys. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, everybody, we're going to wrap it up. Catch us again on Friday night. We'll be doing a live show then. Next Monday, we'll have another person joining us. We'll probably announce that on Friday's show. But appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you next time.